This may look like any other Australian coastal city, but all is not as it seems. Cairns has a hidden secret. Lying in the tropical zone of northeast Australia, it is surrounded not by desert and the dusty outback, but by one of the oldest rainforests on Earth. Japanese wildlife cameraman Tadashi Shimada has traveled halfway around the world to fulfill a dream. Tadashi has come here in search of two of the most beautiful birds in the Australian rainforest. These forests stretch in an unbroken spine for hundreds of miles across the mountains of northeastern Australia. The ancient forests are 130 million years old and have the highest concentration of primitive flowering plant families on Earth. The wet climate has allowed palms, lianas, and ferns to form a luxuriant, dense canopy. Tadashi is amazed by the diversity and richness of the forest. Some of these spectacular fan palms grow to over 20 meters in height. Wallabies come to the edge of the forest to feed. Smaller than kangaroos, they specialize in eating grasses and are therefore found across large stretches of dry country as well as the wetter northeast. One of the most extraordinary birds found here is the flightless cassowary, which can live for at least 50 years. Cassowaries are now endangered. There are believed to be only 1,500 left. If they were to become extinct, it could have a dramatic impact on the health of these rainforests. Cassowaries disperse the seeds of almost 100 plants which survive passage through their digestive tract intact. Reptiles such as Boyd's forest dragon may appear ornate and brightly colored, but in the rainforest they are perfectly camouflaged. These lizards feed on insects, especially ants and earthworms. Most kingfishers are quite small, but this is not always the case in Australia. The laughing kookaburra is the world's largest kingfisher. Some females weigh as much as half a kilo. These forest kingfishers hunt ground animals such as snakes and lizards. Like all kingfishers, the kookaburra always makes sure its prey is dead by beating it against a branch before swallowing it. The Australian rainforests rely on thriving communities of fungi, which decompose fallen leaves and wood. Fungi are often overlooked, but they play a crucial role as recyclers in the rainforest. By breaking down complex molecules on the forest floor, they make vital nutrients available to trees and seedlings. These forests are the chosen breeding grounds of paradise kingfishers, which migrate from New Guinea and arrive in Queensland in November. Tadashi is looking for clues that the birds are here. Looking at this tiny hole in a termite mound, Tadashi knows that a pair must have started making a nest hole but given up for some reason. Tadashi finds a mound where there is evidence that paradise kingfishers have been building a nest. A small round hole with fresh earth lying at the entrance. The same termite mound may be used by a pair of birds for as long as 8 years. This one is still in use. The owners have just arrived. The male sports 2 long white tail feathers. The female isn't quite so impressive. Excavating the hard, dry mud that the termites have used to build their nest is a long, tedious job, which requires weeks of dedication. It was once thought that the tunnels were made by the birds flying head-on at the mound. At first, it is only the male who excavates the nest, but he has to get the female on his side if courtship is to continue. And one of the easiest ways to win his mate's favor is through her stomach. He makes sure the lizard is easy to swallow before presenting it to his mate. Kingfishers mate for life. As forest dwellers, paradise kingfishers mostly hunt insects and small reptiles. Over the next few days, he repeatedly brings her gifts. The offering of a fat cicada finally clinches it. At last, she helps him build the nest. Her job is to excavate a small hollow in the middle for the eggs. But after all those gourmet meals, she is definitely fatter than her mate, and for a moment it seems that she could be stuck. The tunnel inside the mound is only 4 centimeters wide. The entrance hole is about 15 centimeters long, leading to an unlined egg chamber. It seems remarkable that the kingfishers can nest inside a living termite mound without getting attacked, but the termites actively help them build the walls of the nest chamber. It is normally pitch dark inside a mound, and as soon as the termites sense daylight seeping into the nest, they immediately build a new wall to seal it off. Having gone to all the trouble of building the nest, there's no point in laying unfertilized eggs. Mating is brief. It will take over a month before the nest is completed. In an Aboriginal legend, it is said that when the sun lies beneath the horizon at night, it hears the voice of the laughing kookaburra and then appears in the sky at dawn. The kookaburra's famous laugh is a territorial song made at dawn and dusk. Unlike the kookaburra, nocturnal frogmouths are just settling down to go to sleep. It is now December, and the female has laid 3 eggs in an unlined chamber. Both birds take turns to incubate the eggs. Now it becomes apparent why they choose to nest in a mound that is still occupied by termites. Termites regulate the temperature and humidity inside their mound by opening and closing ventilation channels so that it remains constant, whatever the fluctuations outside. Though the morning temperature outside is only 23 degrees centigrade, the temperature inside the nest is 26 degrees. This means that the eggs are less likely to chill when the kingfishers leave them unattended to go hunting. The thick mud construction of the termite mound insulates the eggs and helps to incubate them. For such little birds, only 30 centimeters long, including the tail, they seem to have huge appetites. As well as insects, small reptiles form a large part of their diet. Like the kookaburra, everything they catch is bashed hard against a branch to make sure it is dead before being swallowed. Around Queensland, the density of paradise kingfishers can be as high as 8 pairs in 10 hectares, indicating just how rich in food these rainforests are. As the days go by, the male's long tail becomes dirty and broken from squeezing in and out of the narrow entrance to the nest. Tadashi is curious to discover what insects may make up the bulk of the kingfisher's diet. He hopes to attract myriads of insects to the glow of a reflective white sheet. The secret is to use UV light, which most insects find strangely irresistible. At night, a completely different cast of animals takes over. A bandicoot is momentarily caught in the beam from Tadashi's torch as it digs a hole in the ground in search for invertebrates. Flying foxes are fruit-eating bats, which spend most of their time high in the tree canopy. They feed at night on nectar and pollen from blossoms and the fruits of forest palms and trees. These bats are important dispersers of many rainforest seeds. During the day, they roost communally high in the canopy. Sometimes there may be thousands of bats roosting in one stand of trees. One of the strangest sights is a family of kookaburras roosting on a branch. Young birds spend several years with their parents, helping them raise the next brood, and they always sleep close together at night for safety. It's time for Tadashi to find out what insects may have been attracted to the UV light. By far, the most common are beetles. Among the largest are the rhinoceros beetles, named after the horns the male carries on its head. This iridescent jewel beetle feeds on pollen. Beetles come in all sizes, shapes, and colors, and feed on everything from wood, leaves, and flowers to other insects. Whoa. Like the fungi, beetles play an important role in recycling nutrients in the rainforest and breaking down rotten wood and other debris. But beetles aren't the only insects in the kingfisher's diet, which also includes butterflies and mantids. There is another Australian kingfisher which Tadashi is determined to film, the azure. Unlike the paradise kingfisher and kookaburras, the azure only lives close to water. Tadashi is heading down the Daintree River in northeast Australia. These waters are inhabited by crocodiles. This colony of fruit bats has been disturbed by a forest fire, which is threatening their feeding and roosting trees. Fire is a constant hazard. The weather has been unusually dry, and the rains are late. The fire services are in constant demand to keep the fires from getting out of control as the bush gets increasingly dry. Tadashi needs to find out how long the drought is going to last, and there's no alternative to local knowledge. Things have got so bad that the farmers in a roadside bar are betting on when the rains will finally break. They are already months late.
Well, actually, we haven't even had a storm yet, and that's very unusual. Most time we get storm about October, November. Which is very unusual. We've had showers, but...
The continuing drought means that the azure kingfishers may delay their breeding and will be less active than normal. It's even possible that the narrow streams the kingfishers prefer may have dried up. Tadashi needs to find out where he will have the best chance of filming azure kingfishers breeding in such extreme conditions, and he knows where to go for the answer. This is the home of Ron Stannard, a local naturalist who knows the area around the Daintree River intimately.
Yeah, long time no see. Hello, Brendan, how are you? Wonderful. You come at the dry time, so it's a bad time of the year to come. It's good to see you. Yeah, excellent.
Like Tadashi, he is also fascinated by kingfishers and has been observing and studying them for years.
Okay. Thanks, mate. Up you go. It hasn't been a good year this year for birds because it is so dry. Not like in previous years where it's been very, very wet and we've had lots of birds coming in to nest here. The climate in Australia has been very, very bad because of the El Nino situation. The interior of Australia and also southern part of Australia is going through a massive drought. Really, really dry country. And there's no change at this time. There's been a few storms coming in, but it's been to the north and the northwest, but not down into the south or the central part of Australia. The area that we call Bushy Creek is up here in Gelatin or Roomla, as they call it. Now you find that the Bushy Creek comes down from Mount Lewis, which is up this area here. It flows down from Mount Lewis and it comes across Mount Lewis Road and it flows out past here and it goes over towards Mount Malloy. The area that I suggest you go to for that is Bushy Creek down here in Gelatin, which would be the back part of down here.
Following Bushy Creek upstream 30 kilometers from the main Daintree River, Tadashi is relieved to discover that though the stream is quite shallow, it is still flowing. What is more, the stream has a pebble bottom and the water is very clear. Azure kingfishers are territorial, defending their stretch of water against other kingfishers. Other fishing birds, such as egrets, are already in residence. The lush vegetation along the riverbank provides a perfect habitat for butterflies and other insects. But the kingfishers are proving more elusive. Tadashi is looking for clues that azure kingfishers are living along this stretch of river. Tadashi has his first indication that azure kingfishers are living here. A few scales sticking to the bark where the birds have slapped the fish against the branch to kill it. Suddenly, Tadashi has his first tantalizing glimpse of the bird he has come so far to see. And here is further evidence that the kingfishers are living here. Telltale fresh white bird droppings beneath a branch. The azure kingfisher mainly feeds on fish and aquatic insects. In order to film the kingfisher hunting, Tadashi decides to concentrate the prey in one place in the river. They begin to build a small pool. In order for the kingfisher to be able to hunt, the water must be crystal clear. These pipes will still allow the current to flow through the pool, while the wire mesh will stop the fish from escaping. Once in place, the cloudy water immediately begins to clear. Now the pool needs to be stocked with prey. Some forest rivers contain as many as 70 species of fish. These are perfect prey for the azure kingfisher. This fish might be too large for the kingfisher, and has a lucky escape. The small fry are transferred to the pool. The only thing missing is a perch. Kingfishers need a firm branch directly above the water from which they can spot their prey. Even though the kingfisher avoids reflections and can see fish swimming clearly on the bottom of the stream, it still has to take distortions caused by refraction into account when lining up its prey. Like its forest cousins, it also makes sure its prey is dead before swallowing it head first. The kingfisher spots a fish and tenses for the dive, using its wings for balance. It is now obvious why this kingfisher is called azure, Persian for the precious blue stone, lapis lazuli. They eat crustaceans and snails as well as fish. Kingfishers have weak, fleshy feet, with the second and third toes partly fused. Remarkably, the fish is seized with the eyes closed. The speed of the attack is astonishing. Only a few tenths of a second between the start of the dive and the moment when the bird returns to the branch. It is now January, and back at the Paradise Kingfisher's nest, the forest is still dry. It is 3 weeks since the eggs were laid. All 3 eggs have hatched. The chicks are still naked and blind. From now on, the adults are engaged in a constant search for food to satisfy their hungry brood. Each chick will eat its own weight in a day. Normally, there would be a plentiful supply of insects, but this year things are different. The drought means that the pair are struggling to keep pace with the chicks' enormous appetites. Unless the rains come soon, their family may be under threat. But things are about to change. By the end of January, the rains finally arrive. But however heavy the downpour, the non-stop feeding shifts still continue. The parched forest bursts into luxuriant growth. Fruit-eating birds, such as parrots and catbirds, feed on figs and flowers. And now, there is an abundance of insects, high-protein food for growing chicks. It isn't only the paradise kingfishers which are desperate for insects to feed their young. This catbird is also taking advantage of the plentiful food supply. Ant thrushes build their nests on the ground between the huge buttressed roots of a tree. They rely on the drab camouflage of the chicks to protect them from predators. Unlike the kingfisher, the droppings of the ant thrush chicks are solid and are easily removed by the parent. A monarch is building its tiny, delicate nest. The bird itself is only 14 centimeters long. The nest is carefully woven from dry roots, twigs, and vine tendrils. It's supported from vines hanging from the trees. Spider webs are used to bind the nest together. As a final touch, pieces of moss are used as decoration. But first, she needs to make sure there are no predators about. Kookaburras eat insects, lizards, snakes, and sometimes the young nestlings of other birds. Though it is barely a quarter of the kookaburra's size, the monarch is taking no chances and repeatedly dives at the kookaburra's back. Feigning indifference, the kookaburra continues to eat the beetle he has caught. In the end, the incessant dive bombing by the monarch drives him away. There are over 66 million kookaburras in Australia. Like all kingfishers, they target their prey from a perch. The kookaburra is able to hold its head absolutely still, even while the rest of its body is swaying on a branch. Snakes make up a large part of their diet. They even feed snakes up to 30 centimeters long to their chicks. The paradise kingfishers are still bringing food to the young in the nest. Now the chicks are able to deal with much larger items, even lizards. At one nest, 56 feeding visits were recorded in just over 7 hours. Gradually, the floor of the nest becomes fouled with excrement. Maggots feed on regurgitated pellets and food remains. Now there has been a dramatic change inside the termite mound. The chicks are covered in feathers. The sheaths which protected their plumage while it was growing litter the floor. For the exhausted parents, the end is in sight. The first chick leaves the nest. Within a minute, it flies away into the dark cover of the forest, followed by the second. And the third. For Tadashi, the kingfisher's success is a shared experience. The fledglings will stay close to the nest for some days and continue to be fed by their parents. The adult paradise kingfishers will make the return journey back to New Guinea in the first week of April. The young birds will leave on their own a week or two behind their parents. Tadashi has succeeded in capturing on film the intimate lives of two of the most beautiful kingfishers in Australia. A flash of blue, and it's gone.